for our Interfaith Week celebrations, we thought that on a dark, cold, short winter's night, the theme of light would be a good opportunity to come together and reflect on the symbolism of light in different faiths and beliefs. So before we start and hand over for just a few reflections, just wanted to thank our two students for doing a fantastic job with the video projection and the lights, and to thank Derby University and Derby City Council for co-producing this event. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Melanie, who's the chair of the Faith and Belief Network at the University of Derby, to say a few words.
Thank you, Jeff. I'll go and stand here. Brilliant. Oh, I have to look there. I can't do that. I'm not talking to you all. Well, as chair of the Staff Faith and Belief Network, I'm really delighted to be here tonight and seeing this beautiful, beautiful film that our students have created for Interfaith Week. And that's what the Faith and Belief Network is for enabling staff to live and breathe their faith while they are at work. But I'm going to talk just for a minute or two about light in Buddhism when I've got my words up on the screen. So I didn't bring anything because there's light all over the place. Am I still switched on? Yes, thank you. And yeah, the light cuts through the darkness. We can see the light cutting through the darkness, the big light, the film, but the teeny tiny tea lights also cut through the darkness. And in Buddhism, light represents wisdom. So when we light a candle, as one of our three offerings that we might make in Buddhism, we are making an offering to the three jewels, to the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha. So the Buddha is the ideal of enlightenment that we aspire to, and the Dharma is the teachings of the Buddha, and the Sangha is our spiritual community, all of those who practice with us and all of our spiritual ancestors that have gone before us. So when we light a candle to remind us what we are striving for, which is enlightenment, freedom from the suffering of human existence. And every time we light a candle, we reconnect with the three jewels that are the center of our practice as a Buddhist. So we offer a flower, some incense, and a candle. And the candle is that wisdom of the attainment of enlightenment.
Thank you, Melanie. And now I'm going to hand over to Catherine, who's going to give us a different perspective from the Christian belief.
Well, hello everyone. I've brought along a candle. I don't know how well you can see it in the half light here, but it's decorated with sequins and dried flowers. And it was sent to me earlier in the year by some friends of mine who live in Greece. They live on a hillside, and a track from their home goes down to the sea at the bottom. And they sent it to me for the springtime festival for Easter in Greece. Earlier in the year, they, on their hillside, were affected by the fires that, of course, we've heard so much about from that part of the world. And during the time when their hillside was affected by the fires further up the mountain, the local community rallied together. They gathered together people who had trucks and cars, and they collected tanks and jugs and bottles of water, and they went up the track past their home to try and put out the flames of the fires. They collected together chickens and animals and put those into caves where they would be safe and cool. And teams of people from the local village beat down the brushwood to make a break between the fires. Nowadays, now, of course, the fires have long since gone. This was during the heat of summer, and they've had a lot of rain. So there has been regeneration, there has been new life, and they are now growing their vegetables again, and that hillside that had been devastated by fire earlier on is now green once more. So the candle from my friends in Greece speaks to me about that community helping each other in that time of need, working together. It reminds me too of regeneration, of new life, and of hope for the future. In the Christian faith, there is a belief that God himself is as light. God is described as light in whom there is no darkness at all. And for me, this represents God as being perfect and holy and of goodness. The light shines in the darkness, and the idea of the shining light speaks to me about the love of God, the warming love spreading out into the world. This candle comes from springtime, it comes from the Easter festival, but on November the 28th, the church remembers the preparation for a different festival, Christmas. And on November the 28th, one candle will be lit in many churches. And then during the next 3 Sundays, 4 Sundays altogether, 4 candles will be lit in a circle, often surrounded by greenery, holly and ivy and so on. And then during those 4 Sundays, people will be thinking about the coming of light into the world. On the 5th Sunday, or on Christmas Day, whenever it falls in the year, they will remember Jesus as the light of the world. So there is that thought about in the darkest time of the year, there is light, and there is always light. And so the candle, to me, whether it's a candle at Advent, at Christmas, or the earlier springtime festival, for me is a symbol of people helping each other, showing the warmth of love and compassion and care in our communities to our wider world, and the symbol of hope that is always there as the light in the darkness.
Thank you, Catherine. We were going to stop and reflect on the messages that we just heard, but we are running slightly behind time, and I just wondered whether, Hardil, you would mind just following that and give us a Sikh perspective.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see so many people on a dark day enlightening your hearts. 3 things comes to my mind. One is that in India at this time, it gets quite dark, and the event of Diwali, which only a week or so ago that we celebrated here, coincides with the same timing in India, and is a victory over evil. And this story is well known to the Hindu believers. Why do Sikhs celebrate Diwali as well? Well, we have a slightly different name for it. We call it Bandi Chhor Divas, which means a day of emancipation. Our 6th Guru, Guru Hargobind Sahib, was imprisoned by the then Emperor Jahangir, together with 52 other political prisoners in Gwalior Fort. And when he realized his mistakes, he released him and said, "You are set free, you can go." The Guru refused to come out, and he said, "I will only come out if these other innocent 52 will also be released with me." So he very cunningly organized a very small door by which the Guru would pass through, and he said, "Whosoever can hold to your cloak will go free." The Guru had a special robe made with 52 tassels attached to it with various lengths of string. And to this day, the story is told that each one of the king held on to those tassels, and all 52 was freed. When they reached Amritsar, better known to you guys as Golden Temple, we call it Darbar Sahib, then the clay beacons were lit. In those days, there was no electronic versions, and people celebrated. That is the only cultural, social happiness celebrated with the light events, if you like, that I can recall. But looking into the sixth scripture, Guru Granth Sahib Ji, there is no concept of external light that we talk about. Guru Granth only talks about spiritual enlightenment. Guru Nanak on page 13 talks about the event that he faced in his lifetime when he traveled preaching towards south of India in Jagannath Puri. He saw priests in the evening organizing what is called Aarti, the evening prayer. You have a salva within which you got clay pots and so on lit and various other things. And they move in a circular motion sort of towards the deity to do the prayer. To Guru Nanak, this was not acceptable. He brought everybody out from the temple and he said, look into the heaven. The entire sky is acting like a salver. The sun and the moon are the two lumps in it. The studded stars are acting like pearls. The wind blowing over the Malayan mountain is like ignited incense. The whole vegetation is offering the perfumes which is blowing over the entire land. O Lord, what an aarti is performed by nature. It could not be matched. So again, it's a spiritual that he was most concerned with. The other passage I could find was on page 463, where second Nanak talks about Jeso chanda ugve suraj chade hazar ete chanan hondiyan gurbin ko randar gurbin ko randar guru bin samjh na aave gurbin surt na saj guru bin mukt na paave. So what is he talking about there? He says to humans, O human, if there were hundreds of moons in the sky and there were thousands of suns in the sky simultaneously lit, even with that much light, there will be a total darkness in your heart. Spiritually, only the Guru can enlighten you. By the way, the Guru is the Word itself, and the Word will enlighten your heart. And it is the enlightened heart which then, like a beacon, acts and enlightens another heart. So the meaning there was that without such enlightenment, the next heart next to you, the one who accompanied you, will remain ignorant until that heart is also enlightened. And in the company of enlightened, then you will be almost an image, embodiment of the Lord itself. It is that enlightenment that the Guru Granth most often emphasizes, that we should, while being in this human form, that we should strive and endeavor for. Thank you for listening. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thank you, Hardil. Now, I think Lucia, who is going to provide a humanist perspective and a viewpoint, is going to talk next for us.
Yes, thank you. I do need that. Thank you. I think something common to people, religious or non-religious, is this concept that is in a famous song, I'm sure we all know. There is a crack in everything, and that's how the light gets in. Certainly does resonate for me. And then this poem by Mary Oliver, when I heard about this evening, felt quite significant. The title is 1,000 Mornings. All nights my heart makes its way, however it can, over the rough ground of uncertainties. but only until night meets and then is overwhelmed by morning. The light deepening, the wind easing, and just waiting, as I too wait. And when have I ever been disappointed for red bird to sing?
Thank you, Lucia. Is everybody happy for us just to move on to Ruth, and then we got some time at the end to reflect on the various different perspectives and perhaps meet people from different faiths that we've not had the chance to meet yet.
Here's the challenge. So I've been asked to talk about light from a Jewish point of view. And to be perfectly honest, 3 minutes, I've had to write it down because I'm sure we could find enough for a PhD, but we don't have time. Let me start with a phrase that I think you may already know. The phrase, "Let there be light." It comes from the first book of the Torah, also known as the 5 books of Moses or the Jewish Bible, our central text, which Jews share with many other beliefs and creeds. And as we've heard this evening, and you'll hear now, there are a lot of crossovers between all the faiths when it comes to light. Not only is this phrase from the first book, Genesis, but it's the start of the first chapter of the first book, as early as the 3rd verse. Just next to me here, I have a yahrzeit candle, a memorial candle. It is lit on the anniversary of many occasions, most often to signify and celebrate the life of loved ones or someone who has no one left to remember them. It's lit annually on their anniversary of their death, and its focus is on the positive of their life, a warm glow to keep their spark alive. The Jewish faith dates ourselves back to almost 3,800 years, and our current calendar year is 5782, but that's for a discussion on another night. I just mentioned this to illuminate the length of our tradition. We have a strong oral tradition as well as written. For generations, the two have sat side by side, and we tell midrash, illustrative stories to teach and explain the laws and the codes, as well as the lives of past events and people. We light candles or oil lamps to mark and start every festival and to end every festival. We know when to light these candles because we look for 3 stars in the sky. Starlight 2 is very special. We burn a ner tamid in every synagogue, again from the instructions in the Torah. And you shall further instruct the Israelites to bring you clear oil of beaten oil of olives for lighting, for kindling lamps regularly. And Aaron and his sons shall set them up before the tent of meeting, outside the curtain over which the ark of the pact, to burn there from evening to morning before the Eternal. And it shall be due from then and for every Israelite from that time forth throughout the ages. And then the Midrash tells us of how, when the temple was destroyed, the ner tamid was shattered, and the sparks went up to heaven, and the Eternal sent the sparks back, and they went into the chest of every Jew across the world, so that the light of the Eternal entered their hearts for them to carry for them for eternity, and to be a light to the nations. But this is not all that bonds Jews to light. Our symbolic lights, our candles lit for every festival, start and finish, are not to be used to work or to read by. It's a sacred light to illumine the Eternal's commandments and the Eternal's word, not to be read or studied by, and certainly not to perform menial tasks by. I also have with me a Havdalah candle, a plaited candle, used for the end of the marking of festivals, and you're very welcome to come and have a look at that when we gather a bit later. And I will stop there because I think I've gone on long enough. And I just think talking about Havdalah candle as the end seems to be a good point to stop.
Thank you so much, Ruth. And finally, we've got Shane from the Hindu tradition.
Okay, can you hear me? Good. This was written by the Derby Hindu priest. Unfortunately, he can't make it today, so I'm just reading it out in his name. So what we're talking about today is Diwali, Festival of Lights. Everyone knows about Diwali from the Hindu perspective. So the threshold of light in the midst of darkness is what describes Diwali. The light at the threshold of the home on the night of Diwali is there to remind us that our awakening to the light of God in our hearts is incomplete if it does not radiate from within us to the darkness of the world outside. The word Diwali means an arrangement of row of lights. Traditionally, Diwali is celebrated on the darkest night of the year when the beauty and the mystery of lights can be experienced in a special way. In the Hindu tradition, light is a symbol of the God and for truth. God is described in the Bhagavad Gita as the light of all lights beyond darkness. It is in God, the original and uncreated light. Katha Upanishads teaches us that everything else exists and shines. Hinduism invites us to the reverential attitude to creation by seeing the light of the sun, the moon, the stars, and the fire as reflecting the eternal light of God. On the occasion of Diwali, Hindus pray to be led from darkness to light. As dusk turns into darkness on Diwali day, Hindus' homes, thoroughly cleaned on the days leading up to the festival, are magically illuminated by tiny earthen oil lamps. These are creatively arranged in rows and artistic patterns. This freedom, however, is not without requirements. There are certain special locations for placing of the lights. Every home is required to place a light at the threshold of the house in the space, so to speak, where the inside meets the outside. The inner meets the outer, and the self meets the world. The simplicity of a tiny light shining on the threshold of a Hindu home speaks powerfully to us about a spiritual life and the meaning of Diwali. The home in the Hindu tradition is a metaphor for the body. The Bhagavad Gita likens the body to a home with nine doors. Within this home shines a light that is God. It is a light because of which we see, we hear, we taste, we touch, and we smell. In its radiance, our minds think, imagine, and create. To emphasize its indispensability for life, the Upanishads describes the divine light as the ear of the ear, the mind of the mind, the speech of the speech, the breath of the breath, and the eye of the eye. This light is not your light or my light. It is the light because of which all eyes see, all ears hear, and all minds know. It is the same light that is present equally in everyone, enlivening all bodies and all minds. The Sanskrit word used for this light is Atma. In Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna asks his disciple Arjuna to know him as the Atma shining in the heart of all beings. The fulfillment of all human life in the Hindu tradition is the knowledge of this divine light in one's own heart and the heart of everyone. It is this wisdom that frees us from the greed and fear and blesses us with peace, self-acceptance, and joy. The Bhagavad Gita likens this peace to the stillness in the depth of the ocean, even when the waves rage and the rushing rivers enter at the surface. In the midst of all the beautiful lights of Diwali, we should meditate on the light at the threshold, the place where the light meets the darkness. The inner meets the outer, and our spirituality meets the world. It's the place where the light of God radiates from our heart, engaging the world with loving compassion and a commitment to justice. It reminds us that on Diwali, our doors must be open to allow the light of all of our homes to enter the world. We should not celebrate Diwali by shutting our homes and ourselves to the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. That brings the end of formal proceedings this evening, but what we're inviting you all to do is don't be afraid. Come into the light, have a cup of tea, have a biscuit, and share your own faith perspectives with those that are here. And those that are here, have another biscuit. And thank you very much for coming.
Love it, thank you very much.